How are you guys doing? Today is Friday, July 30th, 2021. I'm James Sims, and for this episode of The Elite, I'm going to, of course, go through all the picks through the first round of the 2021 NBA draft that happened yesterday, as some of the best NBA prospects from around the world found their new homes. They're all at the same time. Some of the best players in the world were actually traded around, but I'm not going to focus on that until the season starts. But right now, I'm just going to focus on the players that were drafted. With the first overall pick in the 2021 NBA draft, the Detroit Pistons selected Cade Cunningham out of Oklahoma State. The 6'8" guard, and right after he was picked, he basically told Detroit that he was locked in. He's many people's favorites for the Rookie of the Year. The second overall pick went to the Houston Rockets, and the Houston Rockets selected Jalen Green out of the G League Ignite team. He was the first player selected in the top 10 that took the G League option to go pro, which of course is opening that avenue for many players that don't want to take the college route. So this is actually a landmark achievement in the history of basketball, especially for Adam Silver, who really built the D League up into the G League. With the third pick in the draft, the Cleveland Cavaliers selected Evan Mobley out of USC, and I think that's going to be a very interesting trio they're going to have there between Colin Sexton, who's basically my age and averaged 25 points in the league, Darius Garland, who's a year behind him, who was finding his own way to get his buckets, and not to mention Evan Mobley, who many scouts saw as a potential Hall of Famer on both sides of the court. With the fourth overall pick, the Toronto Raptors selected Scotty Barnes, the big-time defender out of Florida State, the forward. Right after him, with the fifth overall pick, the Orlando Magic selected Jalen Suggs, the freshman guard out of Gonzaga. Coming off of a season in which Gonzaga almost won the championship but fell short to Baylor, many people felt like Jalen Suggs should have been taken higher, but now his new home is Orlando, where he will be with Cole Anthony in the backcourt. With the sixth pick, the Oklahoma City Thunder selected Josh Giddey, a guard out of Australia. I'm gonna be completely honest with you. I have not seen him play, but considering he was taken in the top 10, I mean, this dude's got to have something to him, especially with the Oklahoma City Thunder having that really nice crop of incredibly young players, but they're all really talented. With the seventh overall pick, the Golden State Warriors selected Jonathan Kuminga, who was another forward coming out of the G League Ignite team. With two players being picked in the top 7 out of the Ignite, that was a big win for the NBA last night. With the eighth overall pick, the Orlando Magic selected Franz Wagner out of Michigan. So they were able to get Jalen Suggs and Franz Wagner in the top 10, as the Orlando Magic are looking to completely reshape their young core. Right after them, the Sacramento Kings, with the ninth pick, took Davion Mitchell, the guard from the reigning 2021 March Madness winners Baylor. And then following that pick, the New Orleans Pelicans would end up drafting Zaire Williams from Stanford and then trading him to Memphis. So that's where he's going to end up. With the 11th overall pick, the Charlotte Hornets, the year after drafting LaMelo Ball, would end up taking James Bouknight out of Connecticut, the shooting guard, to pair with LaMelo Ball in the backfield. Right after them, with the first lottery pick that the San Antonio Spurs have had probably since Tim Duncan, they were able to take Joshua Primo out of Alabama, the 6'6" guard, who I imagine is probably going to take DeMar DeRozan's spot, because I imagine DeMar DeRozan's going to get moved in the offseason. With the 13th overall pick, the Indiana Pacers select Chris Duarte, the 6'6" shooting guard out of Oregon, out of the Dominican Republic. Of course, the Indiana Pacers, yet another team that's trying to work on rebuilding their roster, as they do already have Miles Turner and Domantas Sabonis in the front court, along with Malcolm Brogdon handling the ball. With the 14th overall pick, with their second pick in the lottery, the Golden State Warriors ended up taking Moses Moody, the guard out of Arkansas, standing at 6'5". That would be their second lottery pick, and they ended the lottery right there. Now looking at the teams that made the playoffs, or at least hit that round, with the 15th overall pick, the Washington Wizards would end up taking Corey Kispert out of Gonzaga, the 6'7" shooting guard/forward. Of course, to replace Russell Westbrook, who's no longer on the team anymore, as he got moved to the Los Angeles Lakers in this draft. With the 16th overall pick, the Oklahoma City Thunder, with their second pick of the round, ended up taking Alperen Sengun, the center out of Besiktas, Turkey, standing in at 6'9", and he was eventually traded to the Houston Rockets. Following him, the 17th overall pick would end up going to the Memphis Grizzlies as the Grizzlies selected Trey Murphy, at the guard out of Virginia, standing in at 6'9", and then they eventually traded him to the Pelicans, so that's where he currently is. With the 18th overall pick, the Oklahoma City Thunder, after making the pick 2 picks earlier and then trading it, were able to take Trey Mann, the guard out of the University of Florida, standing in at 6'5", as they add yet another young talent to their young players. They already have him playing alongside Josh Giddey. It'll be very interesting to see how they mesh up. With the 19th overall pick, the New York Knicks selected Kai Jones, the 6'10" forward from Texas, from the Bahamas, and during the draft before the end, he was eventually traded to Charlotte. With the 20th overall pick, the Atlanta Hawks, who was the surprise team of the conference final rounds of the NBA playoffs, selected Jalen Johnson, the guard forward that happened to withdraw himself from Duke halfway through the season, standing in at 6'9". I actually, Atlanta biases aside, I think Jalen Johnson might be the steal of the draft, because before the draft, he would have been a top 5 prospect. But many people are questioning his loyalties, which in a game like basketball, if he's going to get paid and he's going to play for a nice team, I don't think he's going to mind. Following that, the 21st overall pick went to the Knicks, and they would select Keon Johnson, the 6'4" guard out of Tennessee, and then they traded him to the Los Angeles Clippers. With the 22nd pick, the Los Angeles Lakers would take Isaiah Jackson, the forward from Kentucky, standing in at about 6'10", and before they traded him to the Indiana Pacers. With the 23rd and 24th pick, they both belong to the Houston Rockets. They would take Usman Garuba, the 6'8" forward from Real Madrid, and they took Josh Christopher, the 6'5" guard from Arizona State. So it'll be very interesting to see how these guys match up, especially with Jalen Green on a team that did not do incredibly well last season and was lacking primetime scorers outside of Kevin Porter. And then with the 25th pick, the Los Angeles Clippers selected Quentin Grimes, the guard who originally went to Kansas and then transferred to Houston. He was able to make it there before the Clippers traded him to the Knicks. With the 26th overall pick, the Denver Nuggets selected Nahshon Hyland, the 6'3" guard out of VCU. But right after them, with the 27th pick, the Brooklyn Nets would select Cameron Thomas, the 6'4" guard out of LSU. With the 28th pick, the Philadelphia 76ers selected Jaden Springer, the 6'4" guard out of Tennessee. And then looking at the teams that finished right above them, with the 29th pick, the Phoenix Suns would end up selecting Day'Ron Sharpe, the center from North Carolina, who they eventually traded to Brooklyn. And then with the last pick of the first round, the Utah Jazz would end up selecting Santi Aldama, the forward out of Loyola, Maryland, who originally came out of Spain, and he got traded to Memphis. So that's originally what round 1 is looking like. And then looking at the main players from the second round that many people are at least familiar with from college. The young guard out of Illinois, Ayo Dosunmu, was taken with the 38th overall pick by the Chicago Bulls after what was an amazing season beginning to end, putting Illinois on the map, at least having them end up with the number 1 seed going into the title game. With the 40th overall pick, the New Orleans Pelicans would select Jared Butler from the champion Baylor team, standing in at 6'3", 195 pounds, soaking wet. They would eventually trade him to Utah. And then continuing on, Sharif Cooper from Auburn would get selected by the Atlanta Hawks, the 6'1" guard, after what was which was a crazy season in which he would establish himself as one of the best young prospects in college. B.J. Boston out of Kentucky would eventually get selected by the Memphis Grizzlies with the 51st overall pick. And following that, the very next pick, with pick number 52, the Detroit Pistons, who selected Cade Cunningham in the first round, would end up taking Luka Garza, the reigning Big Ten Player of the Year, after becoming the University of Iowa's all-time leading scorer. So, of course, that's what's going to be going on. Scotty Lewis out of Florida was taken with the 56th overall pick by the Charlotte Hornets. The next pick by the Charlotte Hornets at 57 was Balsa Koprivica, who was the international center from Florida State coming out of Serbia. he was eventually traded to Detroit, so he and Luka Garza are going to compete for that position. And those are the really big names they're just to be aware of. And of course, there are other players in the second round who most definitely can make names for themselves. But those are the notable players from round 1 and round 2 for the 2021 NBA draft. Of course, I want to thank the NBA website for helping me do this episode. I hope all is well. And I want to thank everybody for listening to all 10 minutes of this piece. Once again, today is Friday, July 30th, 2021. This is The Elite. I'm James Sims, and thanks for listening to my piece. Peace out, and I'll catch you with another episode of this tomorrow.